Hey everyone, this is Ling Wong from businesssoulwork.com and great to be here. This is our blab series on mindset and marketing for the Maverick Entrepreneurs. And today I have Jenn Aubert here who from LearnSavy.com and showcasingwoman.com. So without further ado, I'm going to have Jenn introduce herself and then we can talk about the myth with talk about busting the time constraint myth.
Yeah.
So Jenn,
Sure. So as Ling said, I'm Jenn Aubert with LearnSavy, and we are an online education marketplace for women business owners to connect and empower themselves and get the classes they need to build a profitable and sustainable business. So that is our love, is working with women entrepreneurs and helping them, and not just in the business area of their lives, but in other areas too, especially around the concept of mindset and self-confidence and work-life integration and things like that. So we launched in February. So we are brand new in this iteration of our business, and then we also adopted another site and company called Showcasing Women in March. So we have a couple sites and a lot of content, a lot of stuff to share. So
yeah, great content.
Yeah,
great content.
Thank you.
And I love how you just because your clientele, the people you serve is so focused, you can really put out content that is really relevant.
Yeah,
and that's really great. So I know one of the things, for women entrepreneurs is time.
Yeah.
We're often, like yourself, like myself, we're mom, we're wives, we have all these things going on. And especially if you work from home, like it's just so much else going on rather than just, okay, this is office, close the door, do work. Right. It just doesn't seem to happen.
Right.
So time management and really getting a handle on our time it's really important for, what some people call mompreneurs or women entrepreneurs or women in business. Just because not just because the many hats that we wear, but also the way that we are wired.
Mm-hmm.
Tackle many things at a time, and also making sure that people around us are taken care of.
Right.
So we come across things, time constraint, right?
Mm-hmm.
We only have 24 hours a day in our lives. So, and I love this topic because if we can get control of our time and how we use this very precious resource or limited resource that we have, we don't get to do the things that we need to do to grow our businesses. Right. So what is the time constraint myth?
Yeah. So I think, it's funny when you kind of reflect back on your life and you look back in college and you look back in maybe your early corporate years and, you thought you had all these time constraints, and when you look back, you're like, wow, I had a lot of free time and I had a lot of time to really just, which is great, right? You have all this time to be open to different ideas and chase after this idea and, chit chat by the water cooler with this person and go out for drinks with that person and say yes to everything, right? And then, you start your own business and you're hustling to do your own business and getting it off the ground. And regardless if you have a family or not, that's just in and of itself presents, a lot of time that, like they equate or use that metaphor of, a rocket, space shuttle taking off. It's like the most power to get it off the ground. And then once it goes up, it requires a little bit less energy and power. And that's what it is with a business. It takes so much energy and like input and just raw what's the word I'm looking for? Just determination, right? To get it off the ground, that you're just all consumed with this. But you're right, there's 24 hours in a day. And if you want to actually sleep and you want to actually maintain some semblance of a social life, you really need to monitor, every, the time that you do spend and, how are you spending it? And are you spending it doing things that make sense for your business? And are you getting distracted? Are you, so I think there's a lot there's a lot to be said when you start working in your business on, those time constraints. And there are, I mean, it's a fact of life, as much as time is a construct of our species, but at the end of the day, you still have other things that are pulling at you as well. So, so I think it's something that can really, which I think is a good thing. So the whole point of why I brought this topic up and why when we were going back and forth about what we wanted to talk about, I think if you understand that there is constraints to your time, I think you can utilize them better and really get a lot more done within that limited time that you have.
Absolutely. And there's a saying, I don't know what exactly it is, but it is about how things your task and your project just expand to fill the time that you have.
Yeah.
So if you actually impose a time constraint of a project on a task, it actually makes you more efficient.
Yeah.
And,
exactly.
Since we have this anyway, and when I went to design school, it's really about it's sort of like having a set of parameters or a set of constraints to get you to be sort of the creativity, the finding a solution for a problem comes from having a constraint or a set of parameters. So instead of complaining about, oh my God, I don't have enough time, why don't we just sit down and say, okay, this is the time constraint, this is what we get to work with, and how are we going to make the best out of it so that we can be the most productive and constructive and efficient.
And that's really true, because that's a mindset shift right there, right? I mean, I think it's very easy. And I was just talking to a girlfriend who's visiting today, and she's an entrepreneur as well. And she and I were talking about, we're both moms of 4-year-olds and, active 4-year-olds. Both of them are boys, and they're very active and very energetic.
You're lucky. I know how it is.
They're just intense, and they're going all the time. And it was really funny because she said something to the effect of, but Jen, we're moms. We're moms of 4-year-olds. We've got so much going on. And I'm like, look, something that just means we have one additional, constraint that makes us even more. And again, it's kind of a shift, right? That we can be even more strategic and more efficient if we just recognize, not judge, but just recognize the fact that, yeah, we do have 4-year-olds and we're trying to hustle and create businesses. But because of that, we have to, in those, 4-hour time blocks that you get for preschool or a nanny or in the middle of the night or early in the morning, that's all you got. So you have to produce, and you have to produce, as efficiently and, as creatively as you possibly can. And going back to also what you said about creativity, I think creative people, the concept of constraints, it's almost like the concept of discipline. For creatives, they freak out, right? It's like, I don't want discipline. I don't want constraints. I just want to be free to do my creative work. And really, like you said, those constraints actually are really great for the creative process, like you said.
Exactly. And I think that really, sort of differentiate what you see as a sort of more of a design project, that you're creating some sort of meaning, you're being meaningfully productive versus being self-gratuitous, like, oh, just doing things, I have all this time in the world and I'm just going to make all these things. But at the end of the day, like, what kind of meaning are you creating? And when you really sit down and say, I have 4 hours and I need to make it count, you snap into the mode that you think, okay, I need to create something meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
And,
but again,
yeah.
Oh, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was going to say, but that goes back to setting your priorities, right? And knowing that that's a priority. Yeah.
And really getting that clarity, because I see a lot of people who, maybe they don't have that much, they don't have this 4-hour block thing like we do right now. And the thing is, they get pulled away into bright, shiny objects very often.
Yeah.
And I call that bright, shiny object thing negative productivity. Not just because you're running around in circles. It's worse than sitting on your butt twiddling your thumb, because you actually go down another route that takes 3 months, 6 months away, working on a project that doesn't contribute, and then you have to dig yourself out of it if you're lucky enough to realize that you're going the wrong direction.
Yeah. It's so easy. I mean, I'm a total bright shine. The friend who I was saying who's in town, she and I went on a hike before this call, and we were starting to talk about ideas. And of course, I'm like, "Ooh, that sounds great. That sounds great." And I'm like, "Okay, I have to like channel that into a notebook and think of like just kind of write it all out, close it, and get back to my my own path, because it's really, we're creative people. We have all sorts of ideas. We see connections. We want to work with people that we feel inspired by and do joint projects. But if we start to chase after, like you said, if we start chasing after another shiny object, the present one that you've been toiling over for so long gets neglected. And then all you have is these, miscellaneous starts and stops, like you said.
Yeah, look at your hard drive. Be honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
So everybody look at your hard drive and see what you have started and just haven't finished. And also, talking about things that we start and not finished. And I think there's also discernment around it, right? We get pulled away into bright, shiny objects. Yeah, sure. But I think there is something to say about, things that we don't finish. And when you look at it, it's not about beating yourself up into thinking like, oh my God, I suck. I didn't finish these things. But it is really about thinking like, is this really my priorities? Is taking closer to where I want to go? Or is it another bright, shiny object that I would be better off, just let it go? Or would I be better reappropriating it?
Right.
And
I think it's so hard. It's so hard to figure that out sometimes. But you're asking those questions, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's so important to really have the priority and the clarity before you can really discern if something is a bright, shiny object, or, is it something that you really suck and you just didn't finish.
Well, and then there's also, the journey itself. You start something, and like what we've done with LearnSavy, we have a vision, right? And when we launched it, we started to survey and check out, how things are working and getting feedback and talking to our community. And then what we're seeing is, oh, wait, this is the direction we're going, but it's not necessarily the direction we need to be going next. So you have to be both, disciplined and keeping focus, but then you also have to be flexible and sticking with your mission, but maybe tweaking things, as long as you're not doing it, every couple months. But that was because I was very concerned when Courtney and I, my business partner, we were going down this path, and I'm like, wait a second here, let's really listen and let's really think about this. And, are we just jumping ship because we are on to the next bright, shiny object, or is it really a necessary pivot to do something that is going to really serve our community better? So, in order to do that, what we've done is, taken a step back and go, okay, what is our goal? What is our mission? It's, it's to serve this population in a powerful way. Okay, our idea of maybe doing it didn't really suit them, and we're getting the feedback to know that this is the direction we need to go in. So, it's a dance. It's a dance of, keeping with your why and your mission and that value, and then also going, okay, what is the market need and want, and are we chasing something else, or are we really just moving in the direction that's better for our group? So
well, I can tell you, from someone sort of looking from the outside, I see that I don't see there's a change of the bigger mission, the bigger message that you guys are putting out. My experience is pretty consistent. I see a change in tactics. I see a little bit of change in strategy, how you sort of deliver the content, or maybe how you communicate. But at the very core, I can still feel the same message, the same mission. Yeah. So I don't see that as changing course. I definitely see that as sort of like you have to course correct. You have to make the adjustment, because if you don't stick your neck out and do it, then you can't turn a car when you're in park.
Yeah, exactly. Hold on just one sec. Yeah, someone's popping in to say hello. And I think you're right. It's almost like you're on this journey and you come to a signpost, and the signpost is like, okay, you can either continue on or you can kind of go this way a little bit. And I think that's, but the journey is still the same. We still have the same destination, but perhaps the road that we're taking is just slightly this way. So I appreciate that feedback, because we've gotten so in touch with, our why and what we're doing, that even though in our mind we feel like we're making this massive, shift, from the outside it may not be, but for us it's such a big shift, because the internal back end stuff is so so big.
It's when you have a change in tactics and strategy, because the things that you do have to change, you feel like it's a massive shift.
Mm-hmm.
Versus, looking from the outside, I would say I perceive more of, and maybe it's just me, but I perceive more of the energy behind a certain communication and message, and I feel the consistency behind it.
Cool.
So let's go back to talking about how does that tie into time constraint? What does, having that bigger idea, that bigger mission can help you better manage time on a day-to-day basis, getting practical, how to turn this understanding of where you're going, combined with the reframing of time constraint being something negative, to, a set of parameters that can actually help us be better and do better. How does this all come together?
Yeah. So I really think that I have this little note on my desk, although my desk is kind of a disaster right now, but thank God you can't see it. It says, do stuff that matters, right? And at the same time, we also have a thing up here that talks about essentially our mission and the people we serve, right? So that why for us, and that do the stuff that matters, right, is a guiding principle almost for every time I sit down at my desk and I have those small windows of opportunity. And I would love to say I have 4 hours. I don't have 4-hour blocks. I have, 2.5 hours, break, take kid to school, come back, 3 hours, get the kid from school, do activities, 2 hours. And I mean, it's literally like, you should see my calendar. It's any mom's calendar, right? You have this chunk. Or if someone's doing a full-time job and, trying to hustle this in the, fit this in the morning, fit this in, lunch hour or something like that. So, but knowing, our deep mission, focusing on our why, and really focusing on one big project. So, and that's something that I've had to really work on, because I always feel like we have several projects going on, and because time has gotten even more limited for us, because my business partner has been really busy with her full-time job, because that's what she has to do, and that's her other obligation, that, having these two things and one focused project, it's like you can sit down, exactly what you need to do, and you jam, because you have the people that your audience that you want to serve, you have your big mission why, and you have that one project that you want to accomplish within, for us, it's within 60 days that we have a project. So everything is being kind of filtered through those things. And then when you go to your to-do list, it's like, you got this, you got this, you got this, and you have this phone call, this the person to email, and go. And,
but then you're going to say, is this one thing on my list relevant? Like every single little thing on that list for the day has to be relevant. And I like what you said about one project.
Yeah.
I think that's very important. And I was on a podcast the other day, and I was asked, like, if everything goes out of control, everything, you feel overwhelmed, everything is out of control. It's like, every other day. What are you going to do to bring it back to sort of like you in the state where you can at least wrap your head around it? And my answer is that ask yourself, what is this one thing that if you're going to accomplish one thing that day, or if I were to accomplish one thing that day, what would that be?
Right. Yeah.
So that's like, sort of what you just said, like you have one project, right? So what is relevant for that one project? That is the thing for the day. Because I think a lot of times when we feel, when the sort of the negative connotation with time constraint comes up to us, is because we feel overwhelmed. We feel like we need 28 hours a day.
Yeah. And, even if you had those 28 hours a day, you can easily just piss them away, surfing, Facebook and getting distracted on, reading your Google alerts. I mean, it's easy, we all have to contend with those distractions. But, even if you have, 12 hours a day. If you have, one massive project that you're working on and you break it down into smaller steps, you'll get so much more done,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think, so what is it that, and I think what's so important is the first few minutes when you sit down to do the work, and you just say, instead of, putting out fire, you're going to sit down and focus and say, what is this project? And what are the things for that project that I need to accomplish today? So that when I close the computer in 2.5 hours to pick up my kid, I can pat myself on the back.
Yeah. I mean, I think what you said is true. I mean, you have to, before you sit down, and I'm totally guilty of this. There's so many times where I just I run in the house, I throw my stuff down, I grab a glass of water, and I just go, and I end up, looking at email, and I'm answering email questions, and I'm all of a sudden, an hour goes by, and I'm like, wow, what have I really done? Nothing towards my project, but I've been doing, booking appointments or, something else that, is important, but it's not necessarily a priority or project priority. So I'm still working on making sure before I look at the computer that I look at because I'm a paper and pen kind of gal. So I have my paper and pen right here and look at, what exactly do I need to accomplish? What one thing is going to set the direction of, this particular time chunk. And what I usually have, what 3 things, kind of smaller things, what 3 things must I accomplish today? And address those first. If it's a particular phone call, if it's, if it's a blog post, or, if it's responding to someone or something like that, I look at those 3 things and I'm like, okay, I have to get these done, and instead of jumping on the email and, like you said, putting out fires and responding to other people's stuff, I look at that most days, I like to say most days, and attack those first, because, otherwise those are what you've set for yourself. The other stuff on email is everyone else's agendas and noise, but that's your most important stuff is your top priorities for that day, your 3 or your 1 or whatever it is that you need to do.
And absolutely, and I think it's hard for a lot of people, especially solo entrepreneurs. We're a one-person show, so customer service, we have to take care of it. Clients' emails, we have to take care of. So I think sometimes it takes discipline. It's not like, it's not those gurus saying you don't look at your email until lunchtime.
Sure, wouldn't it be great?
I know, right? Yeah. But I think for a lot of people, it's unrealistic because we are customer service, we are client service. So there are things that just need to be dealt with in a timely manner. So I think that's when discipline really kicks in. Is you have a set amount of time, and you really have to say, this is the category of emails that I'm going to respond to right away. Right. The rest just have to wait.
Yeah. Exactly. And I know that there's some people out there that, I would love to say that, I would love to wait until noon to answer emails, but you're right. You're right. I schedule my own appointments. I'm awaiting emails for content from the site. There's entirely too much, I hate to say administrative work that I have to do and I have to be aware of. And I don't have someone who's sitting there handling all that stuff. So I am handling it, And so, but I think you're right. I think it's really being disciplined that when you do go on email, you kind of scan, that list and go, okay, and almost prioritize it in your life. That call, I need to organize that one because that one I have to do tomorrow. And that's a really important one. This one, I'd love to respond within an hour, but guess what? It might have to wait until this evening. And the thing is too, I think, because we're such an instantaneous society and we expect everyone to respond. And I remember this from my corporate days. It was Blackberries, right? And you were on that Blackberry all the time and you were answering emails. And I felt like everyone was at everyone's beck and call, right? I was an executive recruiter, and between the clients and the candidates and my team and I was working for 2 teams. There's always people at me asking for things, so I had to be available all the time, and everything was very urgent, even though not necessarily or really that super urgent. But in their minds, it was all urgent, right? But this day and age, people do expect that kind of response, but I don't think we have to be so instantaneous.
Mm-hmm.
At least in my experience, if someone reaches out and wants to book an appointment with you, like a phone call, not even necessarily a client call, but just a phone call to catch up, I think we feel compelled to go, oh my God, I got to answer that right now. But something, if you waited 12 hours, is that really going to make a huge difference? You know what I mean? Like, will that person disappear? Most likely, they're off doing their own thing too. And so I think, we're always like, we got to get back to them right away. We got to get back. It's like, no, we don't. We really don't. I mean, if it's a technical issue and the site's down, sure. Yeah, you got to address that. Mm-hmm. If it's a customer is trying to get into the site or into a program or, waiting a package or something like that, absolutely, that's timely. But a lot of our stuff we think is so urgent really can wait, 10 hours, 12 hours, and I think we forget that.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's easy to say it, but
mm-hmm.
any, tips and tricks that can help you to sort of like be okay with it, because it's one thing. What for me is that I have this, like, if I can get that answer typed and sent out in 30 seconds, I would just do it, not because I feel the pressure to reply, but having so much junk in my inbox is an energy suck, because every time I look at my inbox to see what is important that I need to respond to, those things just clog up my my mental space, and it's easier to just shoot it out and then say, okay, I'm done with it. So what is, like, it's kind of like, I think it's not a one size fits all how you do your email, but how, what works for you.
Agreed. And I have some time. That's so funny because mine's like 2 minutes. If I could look at that email and I can just zip something off and say, maybe it's a confirmation, I'll do it. If I know that's going to require me to write like more than a couple sentences, then I just like make a note on my calendar, like, blah, 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 respond to so-and-so. And especially if I happen to, and this is what I find is, I'm in mid writing or something like that. I'm working on a blog, and all of a sudden, for some reason, I end up clicking on my email, and it's usually out of like some disturbed habit, right? All of a sudden you're like, oh, let's go check what's on over here on email. And then you pull it up, which I shouldn't be on, right? You're supposed to be focused on your writing. And then you're like, oh, that person needs a response. Oh, it's going to take a couple, and then I'm like, wait a second, I got to write that down, and I think even like you said, I think everyone's kind of system has to be created by them, what fits them. And trust me, I'm still working on my systems, because my systems aren't, it's constant work in progress, constantly. So I like your 30-second one for sure, because maybe my 2 minute, it's just, 30, if I can respond 30 seconds, I get it done and move out of the way. Because I'll be honest, my biggest fear is missing an email and not responding to someone. That bothers me. So I'm more of like, well, I see it's there, I'll just respond really quickly and then go over here. And then I'm, off on a tangent.
Yeah. And I think maybe 30 minutes is a little short. I probably like maybe 1 minute for me.
Yeah.
But I think if you feel like you have to actually look at it and read it and digest it and think about it before you can type an answer, you probably don't want to do it too hastily.
Yeah, that's true too.
Yeah. If you feel like it is a 5-minute thing, you probably want to sit on it. Yeah. And if you find yourself, and that's what I like to tell my clients, a lot of my clients is worried about, including unlimited email support in their program. Because they feel like they're going to be like typing forever with email support. Yeah. And what I would say is, if you include that, but if you find yourself typing more than 5 paragraphs or 8 paragraphs, it is a phone call. Yeah.
Oh man. That's a long, I don't know about you, but I always reread mine to make sure everything sounds right. So that would be a lot of time if you're, working with clients. Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of time, what I find is that if you type, if there's these like, long emails, something will get lost in translation.
Yeah.
And at some point, someone just have to pick up the phone and just get it resolved. And that saves a lot of time going back and forth. And that's one of the things that email turned into a time suck is very long emails and the reply alls.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No one wants to see everyone's reply all, unless it's like, hooray, that's it,
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my goodness, too funny.
Reply alls. That reply all is kind of take us off the tangent a little bit. But it is a time suck.
That is.
So what is so let's say, one thing is really having clarity.
Yep.
And what else do you find to be really helpful in terms of really helping people get to be productive and being efficient in their business?
Well, I think if I don't mind, just kind of, I'll talk about that in a second, but I think there's something really important that I just wanted to kind of touch back on that I don't think we really covered, which is, and I think this is just something that's speaking to me right now, but the concept of mindset, and I think that
I mindset.
Yeah, I'm a huge mindset person, right? I'm a huge mindset person. And I think that that concept of constraint and time constraint is very has a lot of negativity, right? And that was kind of the story I started earlier when I was talking about a girlfriend of mine. Like, she's like, but people don't understand. We have kids, and and I'm like, yeah, we have kids, but that's a story we're making up in our minds, right? That we're not able to do all the stuff we want to do because we have all these time constraints. So in that kind of context, it makes it sound like time constraint is some type of hindrance, right? Mm-hmm. That it's something negative, that it's something that's keeping us from fulfilling our dream, right? And that is that's a mindset. That's a story we've created to maybe justify, and it is a real thing. Time constraint's a real thing, but how you approach it, what's your view on it, what's your perspective, how you feel about it, that makes all the difference.
How you talk about it.
Yes, how you talk about it. So finally I said to her, I'm like, friend, I won't say her name, friend, I'm like, that is a story. That is a story that, and I told her I was very animated about it. I'm like, because it was something that I have been battling with. That is a story I've been working on for the last 4 years. And I said, and I'm just saying that because I want you to understand that that is perhaps a story you've been keeping as well. And yeah, there's some truth, but it's not a bad thing. You can really do a lot with constraint of time, like you said earlier.
And it's also a story that is being sort of perpetuated by society, by people around us. It's almost like you wear this as a badge of honor. Like, yes. I have 2 kids and I have to do this business thing, and people will feel like when you actually put yourself into that story, you get more attention.
Yes, exactly.
And I think this is something we'll have to say, okay, this is just the way my life is I'm just going to, this time constraint is not good, it's not bad. This 4 hours block each day that I have is not good, it's not bad. It is the time I have. And yes. And I'm going to take advantage of the sort of this required focus to make the best out of it.
Yeah, then that's it. That's a shift right there, right? Instead of going and going, oh, this is all I have. Oh my gosh, it's so rough. And look at all these people out there, all these gurus saying they got all this time and they don't have kids. I mean, I've had this conversation with a million of my mom friends. Like, well, they can do all that because they don't have kids. And it's like, no. Let's all back it up here. Yeah, they don't have kids, but that's not my journey. My journey is this, and I have 4 hours. So, why don't I just go into it with a better attitude and really see what you can do. And yeah, you may not be able to do, 25 different projects and scale your business as quick as someone who's, 20 years old and has got the drive and the energy and can sleep less than 5 hours, and doesn't have little ones running around. But, you just know that, guess what? This is my path. These are the hours. And you just have to focus on your own journey and just stop paying attention to everyone else and all that comparisonitis of, oh, well, they're doing this and they have so much time, and all that noise in your head, comparing yourself to other people and being so negative about these constraints, it's all distraction. It's all noise. And it really, if you could just focus in on and doing exactly what you need to be doing, focusing on your priorities, I mean, you'd accomplish so much more than than looking around feeling sorry for yourself.
Yeah, and I want to pull that piece out a little bit about how society really sort of we tend to say, people tend to say, oh my God, you're doing all these things, it's so cool, your mom, and then you're doing this business thing, and we're just wearing this as a badge of honor, but at the same time we're not aware that it is actually hindering us, because it give us the identity of we don't have that much time. Whatever we accomplish is like, oh my God, yay, big deal.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's sometimes it's, the way that we feel like that is an acknowledgement. At least I can hold on to that. So why don't I just hold on to this time constraint thing for a little longer?
Yeah.
So that I get that kind of pat in the back, I get that kind of acknowledgement. So we take on that, and this is something that I feel like is not being pointed out in a lot of times. We talk about how don't whine and change your perspective about your circumstances, right? Yeah. But a lot of times is that this it's kind of like this kind, we crave this kind of acknowledgement from people around us, so we keep talking about the time constraint, and when you talk about it, it becomes real.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy if you keep talking about it like that. I think there's a lot of truth to that too. It's look at me, I'm doing so much. And I think it's also to justify the decisions you've made, right? I mean, you're saying, for a lot of women, it's like, yeah, I've dropped out of the traditional, business routes. I love your cup, by the way. Love that cup. But I love it. Honey. I think he's getting some power cord. He's trying to sneak in. I don't know. But I think, a lot of women have dropped off of, the traditional career path, and they've dropped off of the, a certain way that they thought their life was going to go. Then they have children, and then they decide, oh, I'm going to start this business, or they've just taken these different paths. And I think when you start talking a lot about, I'm doing this all, I think it's because you're again kind of justifying, this decision you've made, and you're reinforcing like, yeah, I'm doing all this, and look what I'm doing. And I think sometimes that's why you hear so much talk about it, is because they feel compelled to speak about it, because it's so different than you don't often hear your corporate friends or your professional or vocational friends going, oh my God, I've done all this, and I have kids at home. You don't hear that as much, let's say, but for those of us, yeah, it's like for us, yeah. I mean, for us, we're like, woohoo, and I think because a few things, we're often doing this in isolation. We're often doing this by ourselves. We are not surrounded by colleagues that you can commiserate with, So I think that's just our way of, and I say us because I'm just as guilty as anyone else of saying, wow, look what all the stuff I've done today. Oh, but it's, but I think it's just to kind of, because no one else is going to give us our gold stars, right? So you kind of have to give them to yourself. So.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of it's really the way we talk about it, because that really creates our reality of whether this time, how it creates the reality of how we view this time constraint, and whether we're going to see it as something that we push against, that we resist, or is it something that we make use of. Maybe you can just say, hooray, I have a 4-hour block of time. Yay, I don't have people bugging me at the water cooler. I don't have like weird people knocking at my office door, coming in to say something that is, unrelated.
Mm-hmm. It's true. I mean, I've had many friends who have still have, their corporate jobs, but they've decided to work from home. And it's really quite amazing how they all say, like, I get so much more done in a day at home with my focused time than I ever do in the office. They're like, I don't ever want to return to an office because, I'm not feeling obligated to go and have lunch with people. And I mean, that sounds kind of, like you're being antisocial, but there's a time and place. And I always felt that when I had my job, like I didn't want to spend 2 hours wandering around the office, doing what I needed to do. I want to just go and get my work done, but you have to, because I had actually one of our assistants say, like, Jen, you need to be more social. I'm like, I'm a very sociable person, but when I get to work, I want to work. So for me, it was really hard to balance that out. And now with these, with having these chunks of time, it's amazing. You can just get stuff done.
I know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a good thing. So
it is a good thing. Well, that was the whole thing. That's really what I wanted to talk about. I really am a huge proponent of time constraints are our secret weapon, especially for those, who are moms or who are starting up and hustling on the side and starting things up, in the wee hours of the morning. There is something really powerful and very magical about these time constraints. And like you said, if we can look at them as something positive and we can look at them as something that we can use to our advantage, it's amazing, because one day we won't have these time constraints, right? That's all the hope. Eventually our kids will go to kindergarten and have longer days at school, or you might get some help or something like that, and you'll be surprised, like, you could probably still do it in 4 hours and have all this free time, or you may want to do 6 hours and you'll still have plenty of time, because I think it's almost like training. Like, we've trained, when you're in this time constraint kind of mode, you're really training yourself to be uber like productive and efficient and focused. I mean, you create focus, especially in this day and age. It's hard to focus, right? So you're really creating some serious like discipline. And again, I know, exactly. So I think there's a lot. I think we have an advantage when you have this constraints put on you.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I used to, before my 3-year went to preschool. He just started preschool in September.
Congrats.
Preschool is better. Like, preschool is like 9 to 3, 9 to 6, and now my older one goes to kindergarten. It's like 9 to 1. I'm like, oh, what am I gonna do with you?
You're like, that's it? That's all I have?
We used to go to preschool 9 to 6. Monday through Friday. I was like, yippee! But anyway, so before my little one went to preschool, I had, the nanny would come, pick him up, and then go pick up the older one. So it's kind of like I had 4 hours.
Right.
Really. Mm-hmm. And now I have 6 hours. So I'm like, yay! I can work a 2-hour bike ride in.
It's amazing. Isn't it? I mean, 6 hours is like the whole world. It's like the skies part. It's like, it's so wonderful.
Oh. So, yeah. So, I mean, it's just how you look at it, right? And really, seriously, 4 hours of really focused time, you can do a lot more than 8 hours just meandering in the office.
It's true. It really is true. And I'm sure if you really study like what that person in the office is doing, you probably find out they're doing a lot less than 4 hours of actual work, if you could tease it all apart. So so it is our secret power or strength.
And when I have those 4 hours, I'm like, I'm not going to be touching emails. I'm not going to be doing like silly things on the computer. Mm-hmm. I have this rule. I have the coffee and wine rule.
I like it already.
Coffee in the morning and wine at night. I knock out the emails. I knock out the social media stuff.
Nice. During those 2 hours or that period of time.
Yep.
Very nice.
I like that. Time.
I love it. Oh my God. The liquid ends of your day.
Exactly. When it's like, green tea time.
Mm-hmm.
Pen to paper.
Right. I love it. Do you have, because we were talking about this earlier, but do you have any routines or rituals that kind of kick off your day, like when you go to sit down at your desk?
It's funny. I was talking at a podcast on this the other day, and I actually look at my emails counter to all the gurus tell us.
Yeah.
I think it's because I have that discipline to not put out fires, to not get sucked into other people's agenda. But I find that when I'm replying to things that I need to reply to, it helps my brain get into gear. Because I can't just pick up the serious stuff right away. It's just not it's just my brain is still like, getting the caffeine to kick in. I can't write that serious thing yet. So answering some emails that are sort of priority helps my brain to get going. Like, okay, what do I need to get done today? Who do I need to reach out to? Yada, 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 before I do the serious writing.
Yeah.
And I also like to have a chunk of time in the middle, just break it up in the middle of the day to go work out, to go to yoga class, go for a run, go for a bike ride. Because when I, get my first chunk of focus time down, I have input into my brain. Like, what do I need to think about? What the problems are for the project of the day. So when I go out and take myself off the production mode, I can go into the creative or problem-solving mode. Yeah.
Oh, I have to say that is some of the best ideas. I mean, outside of the shower for me, is when and it's not even like I'm at the gym. I have usually my earbuds in. I'm watching like some kind of documentary or some show on Netflix or something. And that's when all this, it's as though all the work in the morning that you've been working on and ideas that kind of come up and go, it's like they all start to kind of have that moment that they can start to come up, and all the stuff starts to come up when I'm working out. Like, oh, I haven't thought about that person as someone I should contact, or wait, this is a good blog article. So, I don't have any time to like pulling up Evernote and taking notes, and, I'm trying to do that while I'm on the machines, and then people are probably like, what is going on over there? But, you want to capture those ideas. And I think, and I think that's really an important thing, is figuring out a physical, component to your day, even if it's just a very, casual walk, or, bouncing on a rebound or a trampoline. I think there's that moment that you need to step away, to allow all that stuff to percolate up.
Yeah. And what I really find to be important is that you create that mental space, because somewhere deep down there, you have the creativity. Everybody have creativity. We're not talking about just, people making pictures. Right. But you need that space for creativity to come through. And it doesn't happen when you're all metal to the pedal. Yeah,
it's true. It's very true.
You have to do on the phone, right. There's that's just no room.
Mm-hmm. And I think that goes back to our time constraints. I think that time constraint, is your doing time, right? But I almost think that we have to find, other areas, and it might be while, like you with going to the gym, where there's some constraints around, the creative. Even if it's just giving yourself an hour every day to say, okay, this hour you're going to read or go for a walk, or, spend quality time with a friend or have coffee. And I think that also having, those kind of chunks of time plotted out throughout your day or week, I think are really important to allow for that. Because if you just focus those chunks of time on doing, and not allowing for things to, kind of,
marinate, percolate.
Yes, marinate. That's a great word. I was looking for a cooking word. To marinate, so I was like, okay, bubbling, boiling. Marinate, perfect. Marinate. Then, you don't want to be always go, go, go. You have to find those chunks of time and to allow for creativity to come, bubbling up. So.
Yeah, and actually, I make it part of my daily routine. Like, I usually have a chunk of time, a couple of hours in the day, usually after like my first focused chunk of time, to not book anything, because I know I would want to get out. Because when I find myself sort of like slowing down, I know it's time to get out there, to move, to let things sort of find that space. And people are like, oh my God, you're so good. You work out every day. I'm like, it's just easier because I don't have to spend the mental energy to think like, am I going today or am I not going today?
Because you're going to talk yourself out of it every time.
Yeah. Oh, when am I? Actually, I don't do that. I'm like kind of like, I just go. It's just too much of a habit for me now. It's been so many years of just my body just craved that. I guess my brain also craved that space too. Yeah. But it's really, but I don't have to think about it. It is blocked out on my calendar and I'm just going to do it. I don't have to think what I'm going to do. I mean, I even get it down to like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, bike ride. Tuesday, Thursday, run and yoga. So I don't have to think about it. I just go do it. It's
the discipline.
Yeah. You don't make it into a habit. Like you don't take up that mental space to think, am I going to do it? What am I going to do it? Oh my God, that looks hard. No, I'm not going to do it. But maybe I should do it. But then you feel guilty if you don't do it. Yada, yada, yada.
Oh, that sounds very familiar. Very familiar. But I think you're right though. You have the discipline. It's not even a matter of yes or no. It's just I'm going. You know, it's like checking something off on your to-do list. You see it there and you show up. I mean, I think that there's a lot of power and a lot of freedom that gives you when you create that kind of wonderful, discipline and habit. So that's great advice.
And a container for you to, when you have a certain things in the structure in the container, you have more freedom within to be creative.
Exactly.
If the whole day is wide open, I bet you'll find yourself in front of, Facebook for the third hour and you'll be like, holy shit.
I get mad if I'm on there for three minutes. Like you go on to post something for your business and all of a sudden you're like, how am I here for 5 minutes looking at pictures of my friends' kids? I'm like, I get so mad. So like, what's happened I feel like I've been hijacked. Like, how did I get over here? So yeah.
Yeah. And I feel better if that falls within my coffee and wine time.
Yes.
But
it's not so bad. I love it.
All right. Awesome. Well, I think it's been a good chat and I appreciate your time in joining this blab, jamming. It's a great conversation.
I know. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's so much fun to chat.
Yeah. To wrap it up, just tell people where to find you.
Sure. So you can find me, my business partner, Courtney, and all of our wonderful instructors, one of which is our dear Ling here, at LearnSavy.co and or showcasingwomen.com. And come on over, join us, take classes. We're building a whole new community within the next 6 months. We're really excited about getting people engaged. So that's where you can find us. And of course, all the different Twitter handles and Facebook is all the same. So
yeah, I got your email today, the newsletter today about Rising Strong. I'm going to watch that video. So
good. Yeah, it's a great. I will say this: it's a good primer, but definitely read the book. It's a good book.
Yeah, totally. Jen, why don't you do this? Can you just put in the message in the chat all the two URL that you mentioned, so people can just go there.
I am happy to.
Awesome.
There you go. You can pop on over there.
Thank you again, Jen. It's so great chatting with you. And to wrap it up, and if you want to find me, I'm Ling at business-soulwork.com. So I'm going to type that in as well in case you're wondering who the hell I am and you want to find me. All right. So thank you. Happy Friday. And
happy Friday. Have a great one.
Yeah. Bye.